So, I've been playing Daymare 1998 on the PS4 Pro, and I gotta say it's been a pretty mixed bag of emotions. There are points throughout the game I'm having a really decent time. I'm getting into the world, the characters, and the story. And then the game just falls flat on its face, and when it falls hard. Now, before I start, I want to clarify, I was originally a Kickstarter backer for this project prior to it not making its goal. It just never reached it, and the development team still stayed together and made this game possible. Daymare 1998 pays homage to games of that era, specifically like your Resident Evils. The story starts off as you playing as a member of Hades, out to recover some bioweapon from a science facility ran by Hexacore. The story quickly turns south when the bioweapon is dropped on a city below. The game itself follows 3 different playable characters. Crane, which is kind of like the hunk of the group, Raven, a pilot of Hexacore, and Samuel, a park ranger who is drugged into all this madness but plays a deeper part into the whole storyline. There's another character named Lev that is just part of the story. You never get to play as him, but he's a pretty substantial role character as well. During my playthrough, I chose the more modern style, which allows you to reload weapons faster, move faster, and skip puzzles if you want. The standard mode does basically the opposite of everything. With on top of that is reloading magazines to reload your gun. So you actually have to stop and reload individual bullets into your magazines. And they offer a quick reload option where you can drop the magazine, but you have to remember to come back and pick it up. While I really did enjoy this concept, just not for me, I don't think. The game itself plays very similar to Resident Evil 2 and even 3. Being in that third-person perspective. And after playing Resident Evil 2 and 3, 2 fantastic games that I really loved, I'm totally cool with this as well. Also similar to Resident Evil, you have limited storage and very specific save locations. Some of these locations can be quite far apart, if you can even find them. When it comes to guns, they go from feeling to okay to not very good at all, pretty horrible. Some shots seem to miss or have no effect on enemies, even with the shotgun. Originally, I thought the zombie classes were decent, but they just turned into the standard zombie, the spitting bullet sponge, the regenerator, which took 3 to 4 shotgun blasts, I always kept track in my head, and then the zombie bosses, which were even bigger bullet sponges. Puzzles were normally pretty difficult, which is not a bad thing at all. I enjoyed having to look around for answers, and they fit super well with how Resident Evil 2 did theirs. Then there was a couple times that I had to go look up a guide to even figure out some of the puzzles. And again, that's not a bad thing, but they are difficult puzzles in some spots. The environments, honestly, were really well made and function quite well to set the tone. However, I ran into some fairly glaring bugs. I had a couple situations that the world was clipping into itself, causing some areas to be blocked off. At first, this was just one area, and there really wasn't anything there besides a couple bullets. But later on, there actually was a situation that there was a block in front of me, and I couldn't go any further. The ground had clipped upward and made a blocking path. And I actually had to reload an old save that was over an hour in the past just to get back to where I was. And this bug, actually, with everything else that I'm going to be talking about, really made me question if I wanted to keep playing this. I also ran into several times of rubbernecked zombies. You'd shoot them and their neck would just bounce around. Even sometimes where their neck would stretch all the way to the floor and their head was on the ground. And there are some bad zombie placement, in my opinion. Several times they put them right up against the corner, and unless you know they're there, you're going to get grabbed instantly. I don't mind a jump or a zombie in a place, but to have them instantly ready to spring on you at a quick half-second notice just gets under my skin a little bit. When it comes to the graphics, kind of back on the environments again, I thought they looked great. I love the dark corners of the hospital. There's a section that you're going from in a city where you're bouncing from building to building, trying to escape this gas. I thought it was great. I loved it. There's even a little bit of a countryside, and then you get to later on go into the science facility itself. I just felt like all the areas felt great, and they looked really good. Unfortunately, from that point on, everything else from graphics is just not that great. Character models looked rough. Even a few zombies were okay, others not so much. Character movement was robotic and stiff. Zombies looked as though they had rollerblades on half the time. They just kind of skirted across the ground. Cutscenes were not animated well, and again, with the robotic movement. Also, enemy AI was normally pretty terrible, especially for the bosses. Many times I would stand there and shoot the boss, and they wouldn't even react. Literally, I could, as you're seeing in the footage here, I stood on the other side of this hole and shot the boss countless times. Stood there and reloaded, shot it some more. The only time I tend to leave was to go find more bullets. Now, sounds and music were kind of a mixed bag. Music scores felt alright, but sometimes it felt out of place, having really dramatic music playing when it wasn't necessary. Weapons sounded alright, and even the zombie sounds were acceptable. However, character lines felt like I was watching a middle school drama production. Lines were delivered without emotion or any sense of care. It felt like these lines were just written on a piece of paper and asked some random person to read them. If they were looking for how voice acting was in 1998, I feel like they missed the mark. Even some lines just felt cringy with how they were delivered.
And that is exactly why you and I have one last task to complete.
Aw, fuck you, man. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, I can't get fooled again. I'm done.
Just shut it and listen.
When it comes to the story overall, it wasn't horrible. I actually had several times that I was getting into the story. It had several twists and turns that showed promise. I liked playing as Crane, a soldier who only cared about the mission, but that was short-lived. And Raven himself actually didn't play bad either. When it came to Samuel, I actually expected a lot more. The game describes Samuel having a condition where he starts to see hallucinations without his medicine. The unfortunate thing is all the hallucination areas are just scripted. This would have been a perfect opportunity for the game to put in an awesome mechanic of you only are allotted so much medicine, or you have to find more, or something like that. If you don't, these zombie hallucinations will take control of you, and you'll start seeing them around more corners or start seeing other situations. I really felt like they missed the mark on this one. My only real gripe with the story is the ending. So much was explained after the credits. It felt so off after the game being almost 8 hours-ish long. I felt like they could have worked these into more story elements throughout the game instead of tacking them on at the end. To kind of wrap things up, I know I beat up the game pretty hard. Bad character models and movement, lackluster enemy types, rough shooting mechanics, game-breaking bugs, rough voice acting. The game has it all. However, underneath all that were environments that were surprisingly great and a storyline that was actually pretty decent. Look, I want to see a sequel to Daymare 1998. Maybe Daymare 1999. Because there is potential here. Overall, the past few years, we've seen so many games try to bring old mechanics into modern gaming, and few have succeeded. Doesn't mean you should stop trying. While the game was only $40 physically, I have a hard time recommending it unless it gets some more polish. And especially since the game came out to PC, Xbox One, and PS4, this game definitely needed to go back into the oven for a little bit longer before it came out. So, that wraps up my first impression / review over Daymare 1998. If you'd like to see some gameplay footage, click the link to your left. That'll take you to a running no commentary playlist of me going through my amazing journey. And if you like what you see and you want to see some more, click the link to your right. That'll take you to the channel itself where I have tons of videos going on over there. Until next time, you guys, stay frosty.